Sagacity. Noun. Wise judgment that comes from experience. His sagacity showed in how he asked one steady question after another, drawing out the hidden risks without humiliating the junior staff who had missed them. Pariah. Noun. A person rejected or avoided by others in their community. After the leak, he became a pariah in the newsroom, eating lunch alone at a corner desk. Imbue. Verb. To fill something with a particular feeling or quality. Years of cooking had imbued the kitchen with comfort, and even on hard days the smell of onions in the pan made the room feel forgiving. Persevere. Verb. To continue despite difficulty or delay. She chose to persevere through the slow certification process, studying after work and reminding herself why the credential mattered. Disparage. Verb. To speak about someone or something as if it is not worthy of respect. He refused to disparage the rival's work, choosing instead to explain his own approach with evidence and quiet confidence. Impugn. Verb. To challenge the truth, honor, or honesty of someone or something. She refused to impugn his motives without proof, though the missing funds nagged at her. Pervade. Verb. To spread through and be present throughout. A smell of cinnamon began to pervade the hallway, and by the time the cookies were out, even the upstairs neighbor had drifted down with a hopeful smile. Edify. Verb. To instruct or improve someone morally or intellectually. She hoped the biography would edify young readers without turning into a sermon. Deference. Noun. Polite respect for someone else's judgment. Out of deference to her grandmother, she tasted the soup first. Imbroglio. Noun. A complicated and messy situation that is hard to escape. The rental imbroglio involved 3 leases, 2 keys, and 1 angry subletter. Baleful. Adjective. Threatening harm or evil in a menacing way. The owl turned a baleful stare on the flashlight beam, then glided off without a sound. Prerogative. Noun. A right or privilege that belongs to a particular person or role. It was the director's prerogative to approve the final cut, but she still invited the whole crew to a screening and listened carefully to their notes. Acrimony. Noun. Bitter anger in speech or manner. Acrimony spread through the emails until someone suggested a meeting with a neutral chair. Tentative. Adjective. Hesitant, not yet fixed or final. She took a tentative step onto the frozen brook, listening for the thin crack under the snow. Idiosyncratic. Adjective. Unusual in a way that is specific to one person. Her idiosyncratic system for labeling pantry jars made perfect sense to her, and guests stared at the shelves as if they were reading a private code. Foment. Verb. To stir up trouble or strong feeling. Gossip fomented a feud between neighbors who had shared a fence for 20 years. Invoke. Verb. To call on something as authority or as a reason. She invoked the original agreement, reading the line aloud so the group could return to what they had actually promised. Arduous. Adjective. Requiring great effort over a long period. Training for the mountain trek was arduous, with early mornings, heavy packs, and steady progress that rarely felt dramatic. Serenity. Noun. a peaceful calm that feels steady and unbroken. The lake held a rare serenity at dawn, and she watched the pale mist hover above the water as if it had nowhere else to be. Staunch. Adjective. Firm in loyalty or support. She was a staunch fan of the small library, even when its hours shrank. Clandestine. Adjective. Kept secret, often to avoid detection. They held a clandestine rehearsal in the back room. Lights dimmed and windows covered because the surprise performance depended on no one leaking the plan. Incessant. Adjective. Continuing without stopping. The incessant buzzing of the streetlight drew moths in a swirling cloud, and the quiet porch became an unexpected theater of wings and shadows. Exemplify. Verb. To be a clear example of. The meal exemplified comfort food, thick soup, brown bread, butter melting into both. Encompass. Verb. To include or cover a wide range of things. The job began to encompass far more than design, from late-night customer calls to careful budgeting that kept the small studio afloat. Disparate. Adjective. So different in kind that they are hard to compare or unite. The committee blended disparate traditions into one festival, pairing brass bands with quiet tea ceremonies and hoping the schedule would not feel like two unrelated events. Didactic. Adjective. Intended to teach, often in a moralizing or lecturing tone. The novel grew didactic in the final chapter, naming lessons the characters had already earned through pain. Repute. Noun. The general opinion people have about someone or something. The baker's repute traveled ahead of him. Strangers stepped into the shop and inhaled cinnamon before they reached the counter. Revoke. Verb. To officially cancel a right, decision, or permission. The platform chose to revoke the vendor's access after repeated violations, documenting each incident to avoid a drawn-out dispute. Elusive. Adjective. Difficult to find, define, or achieve. True work-life balance felt elusive during the busiest season, so she set clearer boundaries and protected a few non-negotiable evenings. Placate. Verb. To calm someone by giving them what they want or by reassuring them. She tried to placate the restless dog with a handful of kibble and a steady voice while thunder rolled beyond the ridge. Limpid. Adjective. Clear and transparent, simple and clean. Near the bank, the water was limpid, and painted stones lay sharp on the bottom. Efficacy. Noun. Power to produce the result you want. The new allergy pill had real efficacy. Within an hour, her eyes stopped itching and the room looked clear again. Culminate. Verb. To reach a final or decisive point, often after a long process. Years of small grants and volunteer weekends culminated in a community garden with raised beds, a tool shed, and a chalkboard for sharing surplus produce. Turbulent. Adjective. Full of disorder, strong motion, or emotional unrest. The flight turned turbulent over the mountains, and loose cups rattled on the trays while clouds closed around the wing. Furtive. Adjective. Trying to avoid being noticed, often in a suspicious way. He gave a furtive glance toward the door each time it opened, as if expecting someone to interrupt the conversation that had grown too personal to be public. Replete. Adjective. Fully supplied or filled. By the end of the harvest dinner, the long table was replete with empty platters, sticky plates, and satisfied conversations that drifted like smoke toward the rafters. That's everything for this session. If this helped you, subscribe for more. See you next time.